Indeed a pleasure to be chairing this session and acting as a discussant for this session. But before I do get into introducing the speakers, I'd like to start first with a brief orientation to binge eating disorder and a brief framework of the treatments for binge eating disorder, as that's what we'll be focusing on today. So, as we all know, binge eating disorder is now a full diagnostic category in DSM-5, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with the diagnostic criteria for binge eating disorder, but I've just put it up here to orient us to the fact that it involves recurrent binge eating at a frequency of at least once a week for 3 months, and particularly important in the absence of compensatory behaviour, which is what largely distinguishes it from bulimia nervosa. So what do we know about the prevalence of binge eating disorder? The World Health Organization conducted a survey across 10 high-income countries, and they estimated the lifetime prevalence of binge eating disorder to range between 0.5% and 2.6% across those countries. That's with sexes combined. And more locally, we have a point prevalence estimate of 3% for female and 1.5% for males. Now, what do we know about the treatment of binge eating disorder? We know that psychological treatment is more effective than pharmacological treatment. We also know that those with binge eating disorder are more likely to seek treatment for weight loss than they are psychological treatment for their eating disorder. And finally, we know that there are a number of different treatment options that have been looked at. So we've got cognitive behaviour therapy and CBT self-help approaches. We've got interpersonal psychotherapy, dialectical behaviour therapy, and finally behavioural weight loss treatments. So I'd just like to give, as I said before, a framework for some of these treatments, looking at their theoretical approaches and the evidence that there is so far for these treatments. And I've taken this summary from a review that was put out by Wolfley and colleagues in 2012. But what I'd like to highlight is the different theoretical approaches that have been adopted in the treatment of binge eating disorder. So with behavioural weight loss treatment, we have a treatment that's primarily designed to promote weight loss by increasing energy expenditure and decreasing energy intake. With CBT, the proposed maintaining mechanisms of binge eating are related to disturbed eating patterns. With interpersonal psychotherapy, that binge eating is proposed to be maintained by more interpersonal stresses and negative affect that results from that. And then finally, with dialectical behaviour therapy, binge eating is proposed to be maintained much more by an affect regulation model. And of course, those theoretical approaches then influence treatment targets for those different treatments. With behavioural weight loss, very much a weight loss goal is specified with lifestyle changes to support that. CBT, because irregular eating is proposed to maintain it, of course regular eating is part of that treatment. And the adoption of, in some ways, more of a flexible dietary restraint and healthy weight control behaviours in that treatment. With IPT, the focus on improving social deficits and interpersonal role functioning. And then with DBT, of course, improving distress tolerance skills and adopting healthy emotion regulation strategies. So just a brief summary, I guess, of the evidence supporting these treatments. CBT is currently recognised in the NICE treatment guidelines as the treatment of choice for binge eating disorder, and both CBT and IPT have the strongest evidence base for BED, with both short and long-term outcomes there. Behavioural weight loss treatment has been shown to result in similar abstinent rates as, say, CBT, particularly in short term, but doesn't seem to have quite the same long-term efficacy. And I should mention that in CBT, they can achieve abstinence rates of binge eating as high as 80%. And then finally with DBT, very promising results, I think, are coming out, but there isn't the same long-term data as there is, I guess, for CBT. So that is a very brief overview of some of the treatments that are available for binge eating disorder.